Now we start with our first panel discussion, boosting investor confidence in the sector for investment growth. I would like to call our moderator for the panel discussion, Mr. Prashant Jain, Country Head, India, GEP Power. The first panelist, Mr. Sanjeev Duggal, Managing Director, NGSL. Mr. Avinash Anurag, Vice President, SBI Capital. Mr. Prabhajit K. Sarkar, Managing Director and CEO, PXIL. Mr. Prabhajit K. Sarkar is not present. On behalf of him, we have Mr. Anil Kale too present on behalf of him. A very warm welcome to our moderator and all the panelists. Now I hand over, so we have a small intro about our moderator. Mr. Prashant Jain, Country Head, India, GE Power. He's a Managing Director of GE Power India Limited as of April 2019. Mr. Prashant holds an MBA from the European School of Management and Technology, ESMT, Berlin, Germany. He is graduated in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Sri Venkateshwara University, India. He has also attended management programs at the Indian Institute of Management, IIM, Bangalore, and IIM Ahmedabad. In India, Mr. Prashant has served multinational organizations like Siemens, Schindler Electrical, etc., and has a deep domain strategic expertise, sales and business development experience, and increasingly demanding industrial B2B and energy sector. A very warm welcome, sir. Now I hand over the session to you to introduce the eminent panel and begin the discussion.
Thank you and very good morning. So we had a very exciting session this morning challenging us on the opportunities that exist in India in terms of improving our sector. The numbers that I'm going to say now, I will need some support because it's not usual that we keep talking about $1 trillion, $1 billion, $1 million. So pardon me if I look down for looking into the numbers and allow me the glory to sound like a politician for the next 5 minutes. So as per the National Infrastructure Pipeline, up to 25, energy sector projects account for about 24% of the total expected capital expenditure, which is about 111 lakh crores, which is about $1.4 trillion. Thermal would see new capacity addition of at least about 35 gigawatts. We see a major thrust from the government in adding renewable energy and green technologies. And the push for adopting green energy sources is going to drive about $300 billion investments to add about 500 gigawatts by until 2030. Additionally, $2.5 billion are allocated to work on green hydrogen initiatives. And further, as per the new MOP directives, there will not be any shutdown of coal-fired power plants, which also means that existing coal-fired stations, at least 60 gigawatts, will need upgrades, will need to be managed, updated, and also maybe migrate towards two-shift operations, and will continue to need investments. If you look at the long-term horizon up to 2040, the power sector itself is likely to attract $2 trillion of investments, and the majority would be invested, apart from the generation, into T&D, renewable, coal, nuclear, hydrogen generation, and so on and so forth. We've also seen $15 billion investments in renewables, which is about 25% year-on-year growth. So with all these billions and trillions of dollars of investment that we see, we would like to get into this conversation to see how is this investment landscape going to create opportunities and what are the headwinds we need to watch for. So we have in the panel with us Sanjeev Duggal, Managing Director of NGSL. As you know, it's a joint venture between NTPC and GE. And he has more than 26 years of experience in diverse global professional businesses. He has done marketing, sales, and now currently is building, generating, operating, and maintaining assets, and which are both in the renewable and fossil domain. The next panelist is Mr. Avinash Anurag, Vice President, SBI Capital. He is active in financial advisory role in the infrastructure space for the last 17 years. His focus area is energy, climate finance, and he's been involved in the entire gamut of energy value chain, including power, coal, petroleum, renewables, etc. And therefore, I'm sure he would have related to the first session that we saw in the morning, and he will have certain wisdom to say how these investments will unfold and what is it that we need to watch out for, both in terms of opportunities and challenges. The next panelist is Mr. Anil V. Kale, who's representing us from PXIL. He's a mechanical engineer from Osmania University, Hyderabad, that has completed his MBA from NPTI, Faridabad, with 21 years of experience across various facets of power sector, like regulatory policy, assistance in tariff-based competitive bidding, investments, project control, and manufacturing. I think he will bring in a very good flavor with his good blend of technology and with his ICRA management consulting service, CRISIL, and infrastructure solution experiences. So it will be an exciting discussion to see what is it that we need to watch for in the sector. So what I will do, as I get back to my seat, I will hand the floor to each one of them to briefly explain their perspective on the opportunities, and then probably we'll start getting to the challenge. We'll start with you, Anurag.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the kind introduction. Morning, everyone. The early session that we had in the morning, that was kind of a introductory session for the kind of things we are going to see in future, especially in power sector. It's very exciting. In fact, whenever we discuss about all these things, that what is going to happen in next 10, 15 years in this country, it looks as if we are talking about some other country, as in it doesn't look like India. We talk about energy storage, we talk about green hydrogen, we talk about smart meters, smart grids, we talk about probably a well-developed country, we talk about richness everywhere. And then we look around and we see that, there's a lot of talk about entire 210 gigawatt coal-based power projects has to run because we don't have enough capacity to cater to our demand. Then we talk about state governments giving subsidy to different kind of consumers. Then we talk about DISCOMs not able to pay to the developers or the IPPs because of their own financial health. Then we talk about so many T&D losses, so many inefficiency in different processes. Then we talk about our own lack of capacity in terms of whether we can reach to the kind of RE targets that we have been focusing. We don't have enough manufacturing capability in terms of solar cell or solar, in fact, silicon, and we are completely dependent upon somebody else. So that's why it's kind of a amalgamation of the kind of legacy we have been carrying and the kind of outlook that we want to achieve. We are aspiring for that. And that's why the people who are around, we keep interacting with, it becomes very important for all these people to somehow find a solution so that even if we are able to achieve what we aspire to by, say, around 75%, 80%, that will be a very big achievement for this country, because we have started from a very, very lower base. So that is going to be tremendously challenging. But everybody has hope. In fact, wherever I go, in terms of my customers, my clients, or the kind of sessions that we are attending these days, after this lockdown has kind of opened up, everybody is hopeful, and we are thinking that probably we have lost 2-3 years, very, very important 2-3 years, and we should again gear up and try to achieve whatever is necessary for this country. And coming to the theme of this particular session, that how can we boost investor confidence, at least in terms of climate finance, in terms of sustainability finance, in terms of renewable energy, we have seen lots and lots of interest from outside investors, foreign investors, as well as Indian corporates who want to switch to renewable sector as well as sustainability sector. So there is a lot of demand, there is a lot of interest, there is a lot of curiosity that what is going to happen. At the same time, there is a lot of I would say, patient capital in terms of pension funds, in terms of different theme-based funds which are there in different developed countries. They want to come to India and they want to invest. And they, in fact, if you look at all these business newspapers, you will see that every day some delegate is coming. Maybe it's part of G20, but some delegate is coming from different countries. They just want to understand what exactly is happening in this country. So this is the right time that we showcase ourselves that we are fully geared up, we have enough capability, and we have not lost our focus. So these things are very important. I mean, we just have to build the story, and probably things will start falling in place. So that is my introductory bit, and maybe after that we'll start discussing about it.
Thank you, Avinash. And going to you, Anil, please share your perspective on the opportunity that you see ahead for the sector. Anil. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Prashant, and also Avinash for setting the tone for this session with his ideas regarding what new changes that we can see in the investment landscape, looking into the current set of challenges which are existing in the industry, whether it is related directly with the, I'll put it in 3 buckets of power generation, transmission, distribution, investments that take place by various companies, and also what we are looking into at the future. He has given a hint towards what are the new type of financing schemes that they may look at, wherein now emphasis is being laid on green financing. And I expect that green financing would take the major role going forward, based on which the financial institutions, whether it is Indian financial institutions or the external financial institutions, or even the passive funds which come in from abroad, would look at whether any investment is actually looking into green type of generation or green investments or green derivatives being coming out from this. And my perspective, since I have been part of the exchange for past 10 years now, I'll try to look into from the prism of the markets that exchange handle or delve into. We are now providing forward contracts and real-time contracts. The real-time contracts get scheduled 1 hour from now. Forward contracts can be traded up to 3 months ahead. So today in the month of February, you can actually trade contracts for transaction in power up to 3 months ahead. So up to May 31, that is the roadmap which is available for me. Shortly, we'll be introducing the ancillary contracts from 1st of April. Now the change or the major paradigm which will happen from the ancillary based contract is the transaction system, the participation system, the different set of participants who are now engaged with the exchange, whether it is the IPP based generation, whether it is the DISCOMs who are surplus and tend to sell power or who actually require power, or it could also be your demand response set of market based participants who actually get this opportunity now to become part of the transaction during the real time itself. So as part of the ancillary services, the primary and secondary are already introduced from 5th of December. From 1st of April, we will also have the tertiary contracts, wherein the grid connected entities would play a much larger role in identifying what are the transactions that can happen, and one of them, the tertiary one, would be coupled through the exchange-based platform, wherein every participant will be providing their profile for participation for day-ahead basis or maybe for the next 1 hour basis for a 30-minute time block period of 2 time blocks each, 15-minute time block period each for consecutive time blocks of 30 minutes each. And then everyone gets integrated with the grid, and the prices that get reflected for transaction in the ancillary services would actually be 100% full-fledged market-based prices. Today, it is either the regulated services one or it is the market-based one which is coming in from the day-ahead market or the real-time market. Going forward, once the ancillary services also get implemented, all the primary, secondary and tertiary services, all three markets get running. From 1st of April, we'll actually have the real-time transaction, and then that will throw the signals for capacities that need to be come in, and also what type of investments that we look into. And one of the pointers which has come in is coming in from the finance budget which has been placed in, wherein the emphasis from Government of India is to see that how steps can be taken today in terms of financing and also policy level measures which will help us to meet the net zero target of 2070, and also look into how do we bridge that in a phase-wise manner through increasing your generation installed capacity to up to 500 gigawatts up to 2030, have green hydrogen in place, derivatives of green hydrogen in place, and also focus, there is also one focus towards being a exporter of hydrogen. So it's a big opportunity that is coming in. Even though we might be relegating ourselves only to power-based domain, but the synergy that we get in from power, from hydrogen, from the derivatives of green hydrogen, the complete landscape of green energy transition that we are looking into, the recently notified Electricity Amendment, Conservation Amendment Act, which will provide for carbon markets to come in. So it's a big signal that is coming in that whatever investments that we do today need to be towards promoting green energy, and also if we are geared up to be part of this investment being run through market-based systems, that would be the real benchmark for any project to remain sustainable for periods to come. So this is the short information which I can share in that.
Thank you. Over to you, Sanjeev.
Thanks a lot, Prashant. Look, Prashant, you briefly talked about the kind of investment I think this country is going to need in the next 5-10 years in the power sector. So we are the top 5 economy in the world right now, but our per capita consumption is actually one of the lowest in the top 10 or probably even top 15 economies. So there is a huge need for adding the capacity in the country. We have seen last year when the demand really picked up, and we were really struggling to meet that demand. We always keep on saying that we have excess capacity now, but one bad year in terms of excess demand, or actually a good year in terms of excess demand, we were struggling. Again, the fear is that this year we might struggle again in the summer months when the demand really picked up. I mean, obviously, government is trying to figure out how to meet that demand by importing more and more coal. But we need much more now in terms of adding the capacity in the country. Solar, we have been stuck in the last 1 or 2 years in terms of that ALMM and this duties and everything, which has stopped or stalled actually many of the solar projects. Coal, government is now realizing finally that we have to add capacity. But again, the speed at which the capacity is getting added versus the way we are growing is not enough. I mean, obviously 800 gigawatt, if we want to be there by 2030, we need to have around 50 to 60 gigawatt every year, which is not what we have seen in the last 1 or 2, 3 years. So again, the demand is there, the investment need to be there. There has to be a lot of initiative which has to happen from a policy point of view. The off-takers have to sign more and more PPAs, which is not happening. The confidence in terms of renewable off-takers have to obviously provide, because if they don't sign the PPA, then we're going to struggle in terms of capacity addition. And again, the next issue is going to be when we have enough renewable in the system. And if the curtailments start happening in some of the states where we have more than 30% renewable, then the viability of these renewable projects, which is already at single-digit IRR, is going to become even more difficult, which is going to make funding even more difficult for renewable in the country. So there has to be a lot of things which have to happen from a policy point of view, support point of view. Anil and Avinash talked about funding, and there is a lot of interest in funding in the country. I mean, there is a lot of funds which can come from outside. There is a lot of excess liquidity which is happening in the developed world. So getting fund is not going to be difficult, but again, we have to have an environment where we support this funding in the country, and that's where I think from a policy point of view, from a DISCOM beneficiary point of view, a lot of things have to happen so that we can add 50 to 80 gigawatt every year for the next 5 to 10 years.
So thank you, Sanjeev. If I have to now pick up from the round one, I think we started with a high level of excitement with $1 trillion topic. I thought it was exciting, and it put a lot of excitement in the room to say, wow, $1 trillion opportunity, what do we do about it? We went to Avinash and he echoed some of the excitement and said, yes, it is very exciting. But by the time I reached Sanjeev, I think we came back to say, oh my God, where will we get the money from? So I just want to remind the panelists, the idea is to say, what do we need to do to boost the investment confidence and the investor confidence, and what is it that we need to do? There is tremendous opportunity. Yes, we recognize there is tremendous opportunity. But what is it that we need to do? And I will start this time a bit differently. To say, okay, now we have the exchange. Now, and we have heard earlier from Mr. Sidapati Chandar, 2 lakh crores a year is the cost, which is not being recovered, and therefore, in the end, it is either renewable or coal. It's just that you might have green funding excitement for the renewable with a lot of philanthropic funds who will want to support the funding of these projects. But on the other side, still, about even in 2030, 60% of the electricity will still need to come from, say, thermal assets. So while I like the enthusiasm and the excitement on one side from the green, and the other side, there's the need for these thermal assets to stay in the system, will exchange play an important role to boost investor confidence, and can we start looking at exchange driving some form of reform in a way that it gives confidence to investors sitting on your left to say, okay, if I have a contract and therefore I will be able to invest, and here is a contract that we can secure and move forward. So how do you see that scenario changing?
Yeah, thanks, Prashant. Yeah, thanks, Prashant. Looking into the contribution which exchange can make, per se, how I perceive it is basically what are the new set of market instruments that you can we can look for, wherein existing capacities and also new capacities can actually make their investments. And this flows from the fact that today, like we started operating from 2008 onwards. Both the exchanges, both IEX and PXIL started operating from 2008. The third exchange started from last year itself, from June 2022. The past 14 years, the market that the exchanges have provided for is basically an energy-only market which is existing today. So it's either your residual capacities which is available with the IPPs, for which they have not tied up PPAs, and the window that was available for past 14 years. Now, when I say 14 years out of 15 years, basically there was an issue way back in 2008 itself, whether this needs to be regulated as a forward contract or it needs to be regulated as a futures, and that got resolved sometime in October 2021. So it's more than a year now. Now what has this 1 year given to us? What it has given to us is we have increased our horizon from existing day-ahead market, which is 24 hours ahead, and looking into what is the next step or next duration or window that we can provide for in terms of forward contracts, which is 3 months ahead. So this 3 months ahead has taken traction. We received approvals in June and we have introduced that, and we have had nearly, both the exchanges have had nearly 1500 billion units of the order sets which have come in for transaction. However, what has materialized in both the platforms is not more than 10%. So this is one aspect which is there. But what we are looking at in future now is that instead of actually having relegated ourselves only to an energy only market, we need to look into a capacity market system wherein existing capacities can get traded and also new capacities can get added on, and this would have a two-power price signal wherein you trade capacities at a single price, and then the purchaser of that capacity decides whether he wants to schedule that power, he doesn't want to schedule that power, and if he wants to, what are the alternatives which can be taken recourse from the energy only. So we are now looking at the next phase, which could be introduction of capacity markets, and we expect the regulatory and policy setup to provide this once the grid code gets implemented, hopefully in next couple of months' time, and then we are looking at this new set of contracts, which could be market transformation.
So Anil, thank you. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Anil. What I understand from you now is, okay, from 24-hour day contract, we are moving to a 3-month contract. But Avinash, energy or power projects, they are projects which are built for a gestation of 5-25 long-term infrastructure projects. Would you be comfortable in funding projects with 3-month look-ahead forward contracts? What is it that you think is needed to boost the investor confidence? And second, do you see that when we look at the green fund, there is global interest to invest? And when we look at the country's need, which is currently 35 gigawatts of thermal, which is required even to fund basic electricity, do you see that the thermal will end up with government spending and the renewable will only invest in the private sector? How do you see this investment going forward? And maybe you have to add to the dimension of bankability. How do we get the confidence to invest in these projects?
Sure. I will answer the second question first. That is with respect to investment in coal-based power projects. We know that it is inevitable, we cannot avoid it, and we cannot wish against it. So that has to happen. Only problem is any investor who wants to invest into coal-based power projects or any kind of dirty project these days, he will have to convince his own LPs or his own upstream investors that why is he doing that. So that is kind of a complete no-no. I mean, from my experience, if we talk about overseas investors, that is not going to happen. But as a country, we know that we cannot operate without coal-based power projects, at least for next 10 years, 15 years. Last year, in fact, 75% was from coal, the entire units. In terms of absolute units, I don't think that is going to come down. Maybe the percentage will keep coming down. So if we have to set up new coal-based power projects, then we will have to look inwards. Probably our own domestic sponsors, some investors, maybe the banks would have to contribute, but I don't see any investment coming from outside for coal-based power projects. For green, there's a lot of demand, there's a lot of, I would say, excitement. So that will keep happening. I don't see there is any problem. But then we come to the second part that if you ask about there is no certainty in terms of offtake, you have to go and sell everything in the market, and there is no, I mean, we have got a, I would say, habit of having a long-term offtake contract for next 25 years, that too with a fixed price. And suddenly, if you ask me that, no, you have to finance a project or you have to put money into a project where we are not sure about the offtake, and the price also is going to be determined by the market, it becomes very challenging. And it won't be that easy to shift it. So I don't see that also happening immediately. Probably we will have to start with maybe 10% of the projects going into C&I space first, or maybe market-based kind of pricing. And then we will have to see what kind of feedback we are getting from the investors or the banks. And then probably it will be a gradual shift towards market-based offtake. But that is also, I mean, that has to be a very slow and gradual process. We cannot see that happening overnight or anybody completely changes the model of long-term offtake to a market-based model immediately. That is not going to happen.
Thanks, Avinash. What I would like to do is pick upon to say, on one side, we have a fantastic mechanism for existing assets to encash the opportunity via the exchange and use either if the capacity does come or based on the forward contracts or the next day look ahead. But there is still a big need for investment, both in the green space and in the coal space. And I want to pick up on one example. Let's look at Maharatna NTPC today. In the secondary market today, the stock is trading about 170, 180 rupees with 9 times of PE. Even in my view, the average PE for such a fantastic asset should be in the range of 11, 12, or even higher. And somewhere, the investor community in the country is also following the global investor community, whereas probably the demand for India is different. So how do you see this, the unlocking of real value of the assets which are actually performing in the country from the country's demand perspective? How do you see that we need to create an education for our investors that, look, investment scenario in India is different and we need to have a different perspective?
I would not like to comment on the price earning multiple for a particular company, but everybody is aware that the demand outlook for this country in terms of electricity is very rosy, and it is going to continue like that only for next maybe 5-10 years at least. And these kind of companies like NTPC or say NHPC or some similarly capable companies which have got a say base capacity of 20 gigawatt plus, they are in a very good situation right now to add upon their earnings. So, and market is quite conducive about it. I mean, they are willing to give a good price earning multiple, but the problem is the overhang of coal. So for coal-based projects, probably they will have to bifurcate. I mean, right now what is happening is everything is getting mixed up in most of the power sector companies. Coal plus alternate energy, everything is coming in the same balance sheet. So if you want to unlock that value, probably one idea is to hive off your renewable sector projects or the alternate energy sector projects, so that there the potential is high and the investors are willing to give you a better multiple in terms of lower cost of capital. So that is possible just if you just want to unlock the value. But anyway, that is going to come maybe today or tomorrow. So that is also not a concern. The concern is how to keep a balance, because the country needs electricity for growth, and you have to keep a balance so that you are able to run the coal-based power projects and there should not be any hindrance. Right now what is happening is there is a lot of talk that this person is polluting environment, this person is polluting environment, but we cannot engage with those kind of stakeholders who just want to shut down the coal-based power projects or who want to shut down the coal mines. We don't have that luxury. So we will have to think about probably there has to be a mechanism with which we can engage with those stakeholders, and there will be some via media solution that, okay, live with this kind of projects which is required by the country. Don't disturb them for next 5-10 years, or we can have a mechanism where we can incentivize those projects even if they are polluting the environment, but there would be some mechanism so that we can cut down the coal cost, we can cut down the transportation cost, so that the tariff looks a little, I would say, attractive in terms of economics at least, so that I mean, we can camouflage that, okay, even if the source is not good, but at least the economics is good. So this kind of solutions will have to be thought about the policymakers.
Thank you, Avinash. I'm not sure if I should feel positive about that, or how do we take that message? Because on one side, there's a clear demand of 35 gigawatts in the thermal sector, very clear demand. And we are hearing that the country might actually end up into a blackout if we don't really add this capacity. On the other side, we have heard that, okay, there are assets which are struggling to get onto the grid in the renewable space, where projects are getting delayed because they are not into the grid access, or they are facing the same challenges in terms of delivering or being able to receive the receivables, which is still coming from the DISCOMs. So I would like to get into the next segment of discussion to understand what is it that can be done to give confidence. Is there a mechanism or a best practice, say like insurance contracts, or bank guarantees, or bankable O&M contracts backed with a good equality EPC contract, to boost investor confidence to get funds into this segment. So maybe Sanjeev, we start with you on some thoughts in this direction.
Look, in terms of capacity, we have almost 40 to 50 gigawatt of capacity, which is the standard asset in the country. I mean, it's both coal and gas. I mean, we are struggling to add capacity, but there is a lot of investment which has already happened. Banks have the money which is already given to somebody. So somewhere, and again, there is going to be a huge need for ancillary services which is going to come up based on what Anil also talked about when we see a renewable coming in. So I would say to add the capacity, again, let's start with something which is already there in the system. I think let's start with maybe government supporting revival of this standard asset, maybe some sort of subsidies, maybe some sort of, maybe even looking at nationalizing these assets so that we can get this capacity which is probably 70% done, 80% done, 50% done back into the grid with some sort of PPAs, maybe short-term, maybe long-term, we need to figure it out. Or maybe look at ancillary services, which is much better than what we have right now. So ancillary services giving 50 paisa per unit extra is not going to help the system, and where the system is going to need much more than that, which we also talked about. Battery storage is going to cost much more. There are things which has to be added, which has to help integrate this renewable in the grid. So I would say look at the standard asset to start with, maybe supporting, maybe nationalizing, maybe giving some sort of subsidies, maybe have some sort of short-term PPAs which are there in the system, have ancillary services which is giving much more than 50 paisa, I think, which will maybe help getting those short-term PPAs also into play, right? Which Avinash talked about, it's very difficult to support a short-term PPA, make it bankable. So maybe if ancillary services is much better, much more lucrative, maybe we can also look at that. So I would say start with small things, and then in the long run, have a good play of both thermal and renewable into the picture. Because again, whatever we do in terms of renewable addition, there is something which has to be added to stabilize or integrate the renewable. It could be hydrogen, it could be coal, it could be something else, battery. But all that thing is going to need a lot of funds from the government. From a policy point of view, it's going to need a lot of support.
Anil, your take on that?
I'll restrict myself more towards saying that whatever investments that we make, let us first identify which market we want to cater to and accordingly plan that investment, and also see that the asset that is being created has that flexibility to handle vagaries of different types of market that you may target for. And that's how maybe P's can be built up from that specific asset. So any investor will look at basically what is the IR, any lending agency will always look at what is the IRR that any new asset is likely to provide for. And for that, it is basically the extent of flexibility that is available in that asset and how it can capitalize on the different market forms which are available. So focus should be flexibility and market forms that the asset can provide for. This is what I can say. Maybe not for existing projects because those technologies are already up and running, but any new investments that we take, it is more towards that whether it has the capability to explore all market options that are available for it to provide a much larger P related outputs which people look at.
Thank you. So Avinash, what I would like to get now is the one thing that you need, a silver bullet to say, look, this $1 trillion opportunity in the country, here is what you need to do when you choose an asset, and we are confident about this investment.
As in either coal or gas or renewable, whatever, that's a difficult question. But as long as all the linkages are set, as in offtake is set, and if it is a coal-based power project, then the coal side is set, then I don't think bankability is an issue. In fact, in the last session also, Palekar sir was talking about bankability as if it's a very odd term for developers or technology suppliers. Actually, the problem starts when we start looking at it as if it's an alien subject. Everything, I mean, whatever we plan, it has to be bankable because ultimately it has to pass every test, including the financing test. So we are all part of that ecosystem. If you come to us, like you ask this question that what should be done to make it bankable or financeable or if it can attract investments, there are solutions with everyone. As in, even if there is some risk which cannot be mitigated today, probably we will be able to price it somewhere or we can allocate it somewhere so that it can be made bankable. So it's not necessary that whenever you have a product, it has to be bankable at your desk itself. You can go in the market, you can talk to different people and try to keep on adding some kind of risk allocation or mitigation so that it becomes bankable at the end when we are going to implement it. It should not happen that we are already in the stage of implementation and then we find out that it's not bankable. That is a disaster. So, I mean, good that you asked this question. Right now, we don't have any clear-cut solution for a coal-based project, but for other kind of projects, I can very easily say that banks have right now a mandate to keep on expanding their green portfolio, that is RE portfolio. Different investors, either private equity or venture capitalist or the kind of investors, patient capital that is sitting outside, they also have got that target that they have to keep allocating their some part of their portfolio into green or sustainable kind of assets. So when we talk about RE projects or when we talk about, say, green hydrogen projects, probably we have got immense pool of capital available with us, immense pool of capital. And we can take liberty there. There is a possibility there because the asset, the capital is there and we have got the demand. So we can somehow try to fix that gap.
All right, so before I conclude, I would like to turn to the audience. We have an august audience here to take in questions, suggestions, comments, and then we conclude the panel. So I will encourage a discussion or a
So
question.
we move to our question and answer round. I would request, please raise your hand for the questions.
Sanjeev talked about the stranded assets, and you said that what could be a solution, whether nationalization is a solution or not. I think that out of 40, 50 gigawatt, which we are talking about stranded asset, 25 is gas, which I don't see any way that it can be salvaged because of the very high price of gas, and it needs to be imported. So there is no possibility of that getting salvaged. But about the rest 2025, which is coal-based, I think you are right that probably a formula can be decided that how much banks are ready to take the haircut, or let us say that a valuation of individual plants are done, that what will be the cost to complete for individual plant A, B, C, D, and then work out that at what haircut and the cost to complete, the tariff will be between 2.75, the variable energy will be 2.75, or the tariff will be not more than 3 or 3.5 total tariff, so that there can be a long-term PPA on the basis of those tariffs. And accordingly, it can be taken over by the government, and then on that basis, it can be given to the PSUs for completing on the basis of the estimation of cost to complete, and then it can be revived. So that is one thing which I feel that because the banks have erred in financing for whatever reasons, so then they have to take a haircut. And we have seen that NCLT process is taking hell of a time, and we are getting into an area where we will see the load shedding in a big way. So we don't have time to, and even if these projects are taken over today, it will take at least 2 years to make them running. So probably even 2 years down the line, if we want these stranded assets to run, then this decision has to be taken, and probably this could be a possible solution to my mind. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Am I audible? See, I have two questions. One, I was reading an article about strategic investment risks, as a part of the RE portfolio. I was reading an article recently where, as far as the RE portfolio is concerned, the various investors are very skeptical of the risks which are there, and especially the off-taker risk. That is point number one. Point number two, in terms of the green energy, though there is a lot of, as is being mentioned, a lot of excitement as far as the road ahead is concerned. Say, Mr. Avinash, you're from SBI Caps. When you interact with investors, they would definitely look at how will it compete going ahead, and this gap which is there between what the market price could be and where does it stand today, even vis-a-vis, say, the next 5-year portfolio. So from an investor point of view, how do they take it? That how is it scalable is a question which will definitely come in their mind, And that is what my two questions are.
I could not get it.
The second question I'll say first is basically from green energy and green ammonia, the green hydrogen. There's a lot of interest in the market, and investors are would be excited about this. But in terms of where they stand today, in terms of what levels it has to achieve to be competitive to where we stand today in the future. But that gap is there. So that is why there's a talk of viability gap funding, or in terms of subsidies which has to come in. So from an investor point of view, this is something, how do investors look at this in terms of competitiveness with the market forces?
So when I said that capital is available, that did not mean that it is available for everyone. I mean, you'll have to show that there is an economic viability for any project or any venture. What can happen is that you can show him a path that probably in next 5 years or 10 years, we will reach this stage, at which point we will be able to generate this kind of earning or revenue. So that story can be funded. But today, if you say that I want to sell at this price and I don't have any future plan also, then that is very difficult to fund. So we will have to have a roadmap in terms of our venture or whatever project we want to set up. The most difficult part today is that everyone knows that green hydrogen price is going to come down in future. And that is the basic premise on which everybody is working. Now, if you want today somebody to fund it at this price, that is not going to be possible, because we know that it's going to come down in future. So today, whatever is going to be invested, whatever project is going to be set up, that will be set up with an assumption that tomorrow, if the prices come down, then also this project will be able to run, operate, or be viable. So we'll have to have that kind of mechanism. That is for the technology developers to answer. In fact, I will give you an example of solar. When we started funding solar projects in probably 2009-10, at that time, the tariff was somewhere close to 15, 18 rupees per unit. And at that time also, there was a downward graph. I mean, there was a assumption that probably in next 10 years, 15 years, it will start coming down. We never thought that it will come down so drastically, but it happened because of the scale. But everybody knew that it is going to come down. And we still funded those projects, and those projects had a business model. So at that time, it was based upon feed-in tariff. So somebody will have to take that cost today just to develop that ecosystem as well as scalability, so that tomorrow, whatever we are talking about, that happens. If we don't plunge into the pool today, then it's not going to happen that automatically the prices will start coming down. We'll have to start somewhere. So that today, probably somebody will have to allocate that cost somewhere. I mean, government will have to take that hit, or the off-takers will have to be taking that hit only because of some other compliances. So this kind of mechanism can be worked out, but the funding or the investment is possible only when there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, we have to see that return coming out from somewhere. I cannot put capital into something that doesn't have any, say, visibility of profit.
Another question I have on this private investment in solar. When we say that there will be market-based this thing and there will not be any long-term PPA, and the investor will only set up, developer will only set up a solar plant and he will sell on the day-ahead market or hour-ahead market on the real-time basis, then whether the must-run condition will still prevail for solar or it will not. Because today solars are must-run.
Solar is must run, but over here it's basically getting scheduled.
No, that is fine, but if it is a must run and if I am going through the market route without the power purchase agreement, then we know that today the solar or renewable is only meeting 11 to 12% of total energy requirement. So that means, and if it is a must run, that means whatever solar is available, it must be sold in the market. And if it is based on the market mechanism, then the price can go to the roof because it is a must run. I can sell at 10 rupees and somebody will have to buy because it is a must run. So till such time that we reach a level where the solar is having at least 50, renewable is having at least the 50% or more, and the must run criteria is removed, it cannot be selling on the market basis. There has to be a long-term PPA.
No, the must-run concept is more to do with the feed-in-based tariff. The must-run concept is more to do with the feed-in-based concept, where it is an assured supply or it is an assured revenue which is backed by the PPA which is already pre-approved or regulator has pre-approved and all this. Hence the must-run concept. And the must-run concept is more to do with the informatives which are built in. Since the capacities need to be necessarily, since the energy needs to be necessarily injected into the grid and utilized, hence the must-run concept comes in, and the matters related scheduling are not part of it. But when you participate in the market, and depending on the type of market that you participate, so the existing day-ahead market is a schedulable market and there are no revisions which are allowed for. So when no revisions are allowed for, and once a schedule has been given to you, like when I say day-ahead market, it is obviously for next 96 line blocks of tomorrow. So today is Thursday, for Friday, so you get scheduled sometime around 2:30, 3, 1500 hours of the day. So for next 24 hours, a schedule is given. But as you are rightly pointing out, if it is solar, the generation is only between 9 and 4. So if that be the case, so whatever schedule has been given to you or cleared from the market, it is expected that the plant will generate and inject. Okay? And in case if there are any shortages in the injection, basically that gets settled through your DSM. So that's how it will operate. So when you are in the market, then it becomes schedulable. When you are in the market, it becomes schedulable. Whereas when you are in the bilateral PPA, you have that option of 16 revisions in a day, which is not available in the market.
No, that is what I am saying, that if we are, whether any investor in solar energy will have confidence to do that investment only on the basis of
today it is not.
market-based.
Today, if you ask me today, it is not, because the market is only for 3 hours. It's only for 3 months, and it's only an energy-only market. Hence, when we started initially, I said the next reform could be, or the next market growth, market avenue would actually be the capacity market, where you can trade the capacities and then take a call whether you want to schedule that or not, and if you want to schedule, what is the price? Then obviously that will also be market driven.
But looking at the target of 500 gigawatt by 2030, I think it is quite way ahead.
Whatever investments are happening today are for looking at that whatever is the PPA which is available,
Correct.
which is 25 or 30 years. MOP has come out at different points in time during the past 2 years in different forums, having discussion, saying that whether this 15-year PPA can be shortened to not more than 12 years. It's only a thought. It's only a thought which is there. But there is nothing which is on paper. No, banks will say that if the asset life is 25 years, then how does any investor schedule the revenue for next 25 years if only 12 years is a guaranteed one? So what happens for the remaining 30 years? That is what bankers are looking at, and on which there are different discussions which are happening for past 2 years at MOP. We are also keen to be part of that, so that the capacity market concept, which we are saying that could be the next phase, wherein the capacity itself can get traded, whether it is existing or new. That could be a solution for us to come out of this 25-year long-term PPA horizon.
We'll take one last.
I hope I am able to provide whatever value to this discussion.
We'll take one last from Mr. Srivastava.
Thank you. It was a very good discussion. While everybody in the room, I think, is convinced that we need about 35 gigawatt of power, and most of it should also come from the coal. But from the finance point of view, there is a question mark. I have an intuition I'd like to share.
Can you get the mic closer?
I am having an intuition which I would like to share with the August gathering here. That when we speak of the finance and that too dependent on the global finance, is this one of the reasons that if this finance is spent on the green energy part, most of it goes back from where it comes. But if it is spent on the necessary from the fossil fuel, it stays back in the country. Is that one of the reasons? That is my one question. Number two, while we speak of the investor confidence, since we have already spent about more than 48 years after independence, it is very important that until the entire cycle is fully resilient, then only the confidence of the investor comes. And in this, the last part, that what is the value for the customer and why the customer should pay. If that is not adhered, I think the entire channel will once again be under question mark. If not now, maybe in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. I think that one suggestion of direct subsidy benefit could be the biggest reform that can boost significantly the investor confidence and be a game changer. So I think that is one big conclusion that we take also from the earlier discussion and the panel. Second conclusion that we can draw very clearly, it's $1 trillion opportunity. And though I may fumble on trillion to $1 billion, it's $1 trillion opportunity. The market is vibrant, there is huge amount of demand. And therefore, there is a lot that we all can do and we all can achieve. And there's a responsibility on us as the 5th largest GDP in the world to also focus on energy security and focus on what this country needs. And therefore, to value the energy resource. Because if we look today, where the inflation in Europe, inflation in the US, electricity tariffs have gone 3 to 5 times, crazy. People are basically protesting on the streets because they are not able to fulfill their demand of even basic energy and utility, and they have gone back to coal. And unfortunately, in India, we are still thinking that, okay, maybe I need foreign investors to tell me, should I invest in coal or not? I think this is the change in mindset that we need. We need to recognize our natural resource, and we need to feel that confidence in our domestic investment firms that this is a sector, this is where we believe there is opportunity, and this is how we can create economic empowerment to our society. So with that, I would like to thank you, the panelists, and thank you all for an exciting discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant Jain, MD GE Power India Limited and RGM GE Steam Power. Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Duggal, Managing Director, NGSL, Mr. Avinash Anurag, Vice President, SBI Capital, Mr. Anil V. Kale, AVP, Strategy and Regularity, PXIL, for the interesting panel discussion. Now I request Mr. Prashant Jain to present mementos to our panelists as a token of appreciation for participating in our today's informative panel discussion. Thank you, Mr. Prashant Jain. Now I request Mr. Sanjeev Sanjeev Duggal to present the memento to Mr. Prashant Jain. I would request Mr. Sanjeev Duggal to present the memento to Mr. Prashant Jain. This brings us to the end of this very interesting discussion. I thank all the participants on behalf of Chemtech. Now it's time for tea and coffee break. We'll be back by 12:15. So we have a 15 minutes tea and coffee break. See you by 12:15 for our next panel discussion.
Thank you.